Levy discontent grows as rates notices go out. A council's major restructure plan announced. Casey Council backtracks on controversial local laws. Another potential New South Wales council demerger moves a step closer. Sweeping reforms announced for council elections in South Australia. An historic appointment for Western Australian local government. Plus executive appointments, resignations and election results from right across the country. Hello, I'm Chris Eddy. Welcome back to the Local Government News Roundup. Yes, we've returned after a break of a few weeks and we'll catch you up on some of the big news from across the local government sector around Australia and beyond. The Roundup podcast is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government. Discontent over the state government's new Emergency Services Volunteer Fund levy is growing as rates notices begin landing in mailboxes across the state. The Southwest Victoria Alliance says the nasty and unfair levy means many ratepayers will see significant increases in their bill with little clarity on how the additional revenue will be spent. Alliance Chair and Warrnambool Mayor Ben Blaine said it's a flawed levy that nobody wants, and the state government is making councils do its dirty work by collecting the unpopular tax. The Alliance wants the government to go back to the drawing board and develop a fairer method to raise funds that doesn't punish vulnerable households and small businesses. Brimbank Council estimates the levy will cost its ratepayers more than $12 million. Mayor Tai Dang said the levy places a significant financial strain on ratepayers already struggling to meet their obligations. Yarra City Council reaffirmed its opposition to the levy at its August meeting, tabling figures that estimate its ratepayers will contribute $14.6 million, with nearly $9 million coming from local businesses. And the Mayor of Banyule City Council, Councillor Elizabeth Neely, has published an open letter to the Treasurer and other MPs expressing concerns about the unfair financial pressure on households from the levy and calling for a range of additional assistance measures. Councillor Neely said the levy appearing on council rates notices is creating confusion, misdirected frustration towards councils and is undermining trust in local government. Mornington Peninsula Shire Council has announced a major organisational restructure aimed at improving customer service and ensuring long-term financial sustainability. The restructure plan includes reducing employee expenses by $5 million and achieving $5 million in service efficiencies. It will streamline the leadership structure and result in up to 48 redundancies, with redeployment opportunities identified for many affected staff members. CEO Mark Stormer and Mayor Anthony Marsh have acknowledged the changes are difficult but necessary to improve service delivery and value for ratepayers while positioning the organisation for the future. Casey Council has unanimously voted to overhaul its local laws regarding recreational and unregistered vehicles on private property, scrapping costly permits after significant resident backlash earlier this year. The revised laws would allow residents to ride recreational vehicles during specified hours without permits and keep any number of unregistered vehicles on their property. The changes also include the removal of rules around 24-hour timeframes for bins and a ban on hard rubbish fossicking, replaced with a new law to prevent the dumping of household waste in public bins. Final approval of the changes is expected in December, following a period of public feedback on the new rules. There's a bit of news to catch up on from the elected level around Victoria. Macedon Rangers Council is mourning the sudden passing of South Ward Councillor Christine Walker, who served since November 2023 and was re-elected for a 4-year term in October last year. Fellow councillors and staff expressed deep shock at her loss, remembering her warmth, humour and community-driven approach to her role. A countback election will be held on the morning of the 1st of September to fill the vacancy on the council. Nominations are open for a by-election in Wodonga City Council's Lake Hume ward. It follows the resignation of Hannah Seymour from the council in late June. Nominations close next Tuesday, with ballot packs to go out from mid-September, and the close of voting is Friday, the 3rd of October. By-elections in Darebin and Whittlesea in recent weeks have resulted in the election of new councillors to those councils. In Darebin, where the election was required due to the passing of Gaetano Greco earlier this year, Angela Villela was successful from a field of 7 candidates. The new councillor is understood to have a strong commitment to environmental protection, community safety and service delivery. At Whittlesea, where the Layla ward result from the last election was voided by VCAT, a new poll has seen the election of Michael Labrador to the council. Former councillor Stephen Kosmeski was unsuccessful in regaining the position after distribution of preferences, despite having the highest proportion of first preference votes. Kingston Council is urging the Victorian Government to provide a direct and safe alternative to the closed Mordialloc Stabling Yard underpass, which was a vital link used by thousands of pedestrians and cyclists weekly. The underpass has been closed by the Level Crossing Removal Project. The council considers the current 800-metre detour inadequate and is seeking an urgent solution to restore connectivity between key Mordialloc precincts. An unexpected expansion of Victoria's renewable energy zones into Bullockshire communities has been met with strong disapproval from the council. Mayor Alan Getley said there'd been a lack of consultation and transparency about the expansion, which was revealed through a state government announcement last weekend. Councillor Getley said the council stands with community members who feel blindsided by the changes, encouraging residents to submit feedback to the government. The council's own submission to the draft 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan is available on its website. And this week, Bullockshire Council has appointed Daniel McLaughlin as its interim Chief Executive Officer starting September 1st, following the departure of Wayne O'Toole. Mr McLaughlin, a local resident with extensive experience at the council, including leading flood recovery efforts, will serve for up to 12 weeks until a permanent CEO is appointed. Meanwhile, Golden Plains Shire Council's new CEO, Adam McSwain, takes up his new role on Monday. Mr McSwain is moving from Hume City Council, where he was Director of Infrastructure and Assets. He's a former General Manager of Edward River Council in New South Wales. More Victorian news in brief. Strathbogie Shire is the latest council to implement a registration system for in-person attendance at council meetings starting September. Attendees will be required to register in advance, provide identification and check in before meetings. The council says the change aims to ensure meetings remain safe, inclusive and well managed. The Geelong Resource Recovery Centre and Transfer Station will be replaced with a new state-of-the-art facility following the closure of the original 1970s facility in March due to safety concerns. Greater Geelong Council determined that building a new purpose-designed centre represents a better investment than pursuing costly short-term repairs to the ageing structure. And Brimbank Council has approved the submission of Wominjeka Plaza as the proposed name for a new public space adjacent to the Vietnamese Museum Australia, which is being built in Sunshine. The name is now being submitted to Geographic Names Victoria for consideration. The plaza is scheduled for construction from late this year, pending funding from federal and state governments. And that's the Victorian Roundup for this edition. I'll bring you more of the news we might have missed over the last few weeks in our next edition. Lots more to catch up on for you here on the Roundup, Australia's #1 local government news podcast, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with a new episode of VLGA Connect coming away this weekend on YouTube and podcast. Now for news out of New South Wales, and residents of Snowy Valleys Council will finally have their say on whether to split their council in two after the state government gave the green light for a referendum on de-amalgamation this week. Minister for Local Government Ron Honig has accepted recommendations from the New South Wales Local Government Boundaries Commission to allow residents to vote on reversing the controversial 2016 merger of Tumut and Tumbarumba councils. The minister met with local officials this week to release the Commission's report, which warns of significant rate increases should the councils separate, with Tumut residents facing almost 15% higher rates over 7 years and Tumbarumba potentially seeing increases between 45 and 65%. The forced amalgamation implemented under the previous Liberal National Government has been described by Minister Honig as another local government disaster inflicted upon regional New South Wales communities. For the demerger to proceed, it will need majority support across the entire council area when the referendum is held. More debris balls have washed ashore at several Central Coast beaches this week. The council issued a notice yesterday advising people to avoid 7 beach locations and not to touch the material which is undergoing analysis. There's no evidence at this stage to confirm the source of the debris balls or whether they are related to those that washed up on Sydney beaches between last October and January this year. At Shoalhaven Council, a countback election will be conducted to replace Natalie Johnston, who resigned her position earlier this month. Ms Johnston was elected in September last year and reportedly resigned due to ineffective governance and cultural issues within the council. The ABC reported that she felt unable to properly serve the community, expressing concerns about a combination of behaviours and somewhat questionable decision-making. The countback will be conducted on Tuesday the 16th of September. There's been a resignation at Narrabri Shire Council, which will also require a countback. Joshua Roberts-Garnsey resigned, citing full-time responsibilities as a teacher and a need to focus on family, health and students. He's served on the council since last September's election also. And a countback election is happening at Glen Innes Severn Council after the resignation of Troy Arundale. The Northern Daily Leader reported the resignation happened in dramatic circumstances during a recent council meeting. The second-term councillor described the council as divided and dysfunctional and claimed baseless allegations and personal attacks had harmed his professional standing and taken a toll on his mental health. Mayor Margot Davis thanked the former Deputy Mayor for his service over almost 4 years on the council. The countback election is scheduled for Tuesday the 2nd of September. Former Bayside Council Mayor Bill Saravanovsky has reportedly been charged on 3 counts of giving misleading evidence to the Independent Commission Against Corruption. The Sydney Morning Herald revealed details of the new charges from a document uploaded to the ICAC website last week. The charges will be tested in court late next month. The public inquiry into Liverpool City Council is ongoing, looking at alleged dysfunction and maladministration. The Sydney Morning Herald reports that this week the inquiry has heard about the lead-up to a fiery meeting involving Mayor Ned Manoon and former CEO John Ajaka that precipitated the termination of the CEO's employment contract. Mayor Manoon is yet to give evidence before the inquiry. Meanwhile, the CEO of Shellharbour City Council, Mike Archer, has been sacked after council consideration of a report into allegations made against him. Minutes of an extraordinary meeting on the 12th of August show that the council decided to terminate Mr Archer's employment contract with immediate effect and appointed Wade Peterson as acting CEO. More news out of New South Wales in brief. Kiama Council confirmed there'll be no New Year's Eve Sky Show this year after efforts to explore alternative funding models were unsuccessful. The council anticipates the event will return in 2026 with efforts to secure sponsorship continuing. Newcastle City Council has voted to allow Rising Tide to use community land for a People's Blockade event in November. Councillors endorsed authorisation for an event at Camp Shortland and in principle support for the use of Foreshore Park. The council received 1,855 public submissions on the matter before making its decision. And Bellingen Shire Council has exceeded its goal of a 45% reduction in fuel and electricity emissions, a full 5 years ahead of target. The latest figures show a 58% reduction in emissions through a range of energy-efficient actions and the installation of solar panels, as well as its partnership with 12 other regional councils in a 100% renewable electricity power purchase agreement. Let's catch up on some Queensland news now. And Redland Mayor Jos Mitchell has been cleared of wrongdoing after an investigation found allegations of misconduct to be unsubstantiated. Redland Bayside News reported on the council's consideration of the investigation report and a motion to note that the allegations were unsubstantiated and to release the report's confidential attachment to the public. The motion passed but was not unanimous. The investigation report is now accessible on the council's website. Queensland Premier David Crisafulli has indicated that Townsville Mayor Troy Thompson's suspension could be extended until the corruption investigation by the Triple C is complete, despite the mayor earning $225,000 per year while suspended. ABC News reported that the Premier is awaiting a report from the CCC but gave no indication of when that might occur. Mr Thompson claims that he's being denied due process and natural justice, and that the Premier and Local Government Minister had refused to engage with him on a proposed resolution to the issue. After 8 years as CEO of Fraser Coast Regional Council, Ken Deem has decided to retire earlier than his original mid-2026 plan to provide stability during a period of leadership renewal. He'll step down once a new CEO is appointed, likely before the end of the year, and will stay on temporarily to ensure a smooth transition. His decision comes as major changes occur at the council. Two senior executives, Keith Parsons and March Vanner, have left the organisation for senior roles on the Sunshine Coast and in Brisbane. Gerard Carline has been appointed as the new CEO of Mackay Regional Council, effective from the end of September. He's currently the Deputy CEO at Fraser Coast Regional Council. Mr Carline is returning to the organisation where he previously served as Director of Community Services and Director of Planning between 2009 and 2018. At Fraser Coast, a new Director of Water and Waste Services is expected to be announced shortly, with recruitment for the remaining director roles and a new CEO to occur in the coming weeks. In Tasmania, the City of Launceston has welcomed two new councillors, Krista Priest and Ross Marsden, who were elected following recounts conducted by the Tasmanian Electoral Commission to fill vacancies created by recent resignations. Both new councillors bring valuable experience and community service backgrounds to their roles. Earlier this month, Andrea Dawkins resigned from the council with immediate effect after more than a decade of service, and former councillor George Razay was elected to State Parliament in the recent elections, creating the other vacancy on the council. A recount has been conducted this week to fill a vacancy on West Tamar Council after former Deputy Mayor Jess Green was elected to State Parliament. Caroline Lana has been elected to fill the position until next year's ordinary council elections. And there are upcoming by-elections for Central Highlands Council and Dorset Council, the former due to the passing of Councillor Tony Bailey in July, and the latter following the resignation of James Cashion in late June. In both cases, there are no eligible consenting candidates to take part in a recount. South Australian Local Government Minister Joe Zachaks has announced sweeping reforms to council elections. In Daily reported that the changes set to be introduced to Parliament next month will require all council election voters to be Australian citizens from 2026 onwards. Minister Zachaks described the current situation as an anomaly in the electoral system where non-citizens can vote in council elections despite being ineligible to vote at state and federal levels. The announcement comes amid concerns about dismally low voter turnout for the current Adelaide City Council supplementary election. Minister Zachaks has blamed what he called an abysmal state of affairs and childish behaviour among councillors for the low turnout rate. The District Council of Peterborough has extended the term of its acting CEO, Kristen Clark, through July next year. Mr Clark took on the role in May after the resignation of former CEO Leanne Babbage. The council said Mr Clark has made a significant impact in his first 3 months, including reviewing its financial position and driving organisational improvements. In Western Australia, Tony Brown has been appointed as that state's first local government inspector to oversee the state's 139 councils, ensuring compliance with regulations and codes of conduct. The role comes with significant powers, including the ability to launch inquiries, require evidence from local governments, and recommend dismissal of dysfunctional councils or council members. Mr Brown's appointment is for 5 years from the 20th of October. He's worked at the Western Australian Local Government Association for nearly 20 years. The Office of the Local Government Inspector will begin operations from January with a team of investigators, compliance specialists and support staff to assist in monitoring local government operations and addressing issues before they escalate. At the City of Bustleton, the council has tapped experienced CEO Gary Hunt as its interim CEO following the resignation of Tony Nottell last month. Mr Hunt has several decades' experience leading councils, including the cities of Joondalup, Perth and Melville. His interim appointment will commence mid-September and is expected to be for a 6 to 8 month period while a recruitment process is undertaken. Busselton councillor Richard Beecroft resigned earlier this month with immediate effect after 18 months of service. That position will remain vacant until elections scheduled for October. Liz Ledger has been unanimously appointed as the new CEO of the City of South Perth. Ms Ledger has been CEO of the town of Claremont for 8 years. She'll officially take up the position on the 1st of December, with acting CEO Matthew Scott to continue in the interim role until her commencement. Meanwhile, Marty Simmons is also departing the town of Claremont to become the new CEO of the Shire of Morawa in the state's North Midlands region. Mr Simmons has been Claremont's Director of Infrastructure for 5 years. And 3 commissioners have taken up their responsibilities at the City of Nedlands after the resignation of 5 councillors, followed by the remaining 4 positions being declared vacant by the state government. David Caddy, Bianca Sandry and Kath Hart have replaced the council and will carry out its functions until a special election in March next year. Now for some overseas news in our global report. And The Guardian has reported this week that Labor-run councils in Britain are considering legal challenges to close hotels that are housing asylum seekers following a successful injunction by Epping Forest Council. This week's court decision has prompted the government to consider alternative accommodation options, including military sites. The Labor government has pledged to end the use of hotels to house asylum seekers by 2029, aiming to save £1 billion by moving refugees to cheaper sites. Meanwhile, the BBC reports that 3 councils in Northern Ireland are investigating the legal planning status of hotels that are housing asylum seekers. It says unionists have raised concerns in the wake of the Epping Forest decision. Councillors at Causeway Coast and Glensborough Council have tasked officers with looking into the planning status of the hotels and to consider enforcement action if warranted. Hertfordshire County Council has expressed concerns over the expansion plans for London's Stansted Airport, which could accommodate up to 51 million passengers annually by 2040. That would make it the UK's second busiest airport. In a formal response to a planning application, the council has acknowledged potential economic benefits, but is questioning how much local residents would benefit given increased traffic, pollution and noise concerns. However, it remains cautiously optimistic that expansion could proceed within environmental limits. 2 city councillors in the Massachusetts city of New Bedford have made an unusual request of US President Donald Trump. The city's longest-serving councillors, Brian Gomes and Linda Morad, want the president to stop a waste transfer station being developed in a city business park. The Standard Times reported that the plant would accept up to 1,500 tonnes of trash and construction waste per day and has received strong community opposition over the proposed site. A Canadian local leader has credited firefighters from Australia and Mexico with saving his community. Firefighters from the 2 countries have been working alongside local crews in Saskatchewan for the past several weeks, battling wildfires in the north of the province. The Mayor of Beauval, Rick Lalibert, told CBC News that the international support was the difference between saving and losing his community. 39 Australian firefighters responded to a call for assistance and have now returned home after helping bring the wildfires under control. And pet bylaws in one of Canada's largest cities are changing for the first time in 2 decades. Edmonton City Council has approved updates which include a tiered attack scale for dog bites, according to CTV News. After 2 years of consultation, the new regulations will also impact animal welfare responsibilities, feral cats and licence fees. Household limits on animals will remain at 3 dogs, 6 cats and a new limit of 4 rabbits. And that's our catch-up episode of the Roundup with some of the latest breaking news and some of the stories we might have missed over the past few weeks while we've been in recess. There's probably more I've missed. I'll do my best to slip all of that into upcoming episodes. The Local Government News Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government. You can find out more about this episode, including story links, by heading to lgnewsroundup.com. The Local Government News Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I'll be back with more on Monday. Until then, thanks for listening and bye for now. The The VLGA is offering a special councillor professional development intensive series. Partner with 3 other councils and save more than 50% off the minimum cost of completing all 13 modules in Year 1. The intensives will be held over 3 days. They're cost effective, time efficient and promote the benefits of peer-to-peer and face-to-face learning. In addition to the intensives and in recognition that every council has different needs, the VLGA also offers bespoke training options, both online and in person. A faculty of facilitators will work with you to customise a program that responds directly to the unique professional development needs of your council. To find out more, head to www.vlga.org.au.